Hello and welcome to another edition of Ask the Experts here on City News 570. I'm joined today by Faisal Susiwala, recently named as the #1 REMAX agent worldwide in terms of sales volume and number of homes sold. And welcome back to the show, Faisal. Thanks so much for giving us some of your time today.
Thanks for having me on, Brock.
Listeners, if you're interested in any of the information we discuss over the next hour, you can always reach out to Faisal directly. You can start your journey at homeshack.com, homeshack.com. You can call him directly, 519-624-5555, or email works as well, Faisal at homeshack.com. Faisal, right off the bat, the home equity tax, a new thing that's come out of from the federal level. Maybe you can walk us through it and give us the good, the bad, and the ugly, as they say.
Yeah, well, that's definitely got me a little hot under the collar when I heard that the Prime Minister here and the Finance Minister Freeland and the think tank called Generation Squeeze have focused on the idea of a home equity surtax. And what
Aha.
that is basically a surtax on homes valued over $1 million. And they claim that this will help younger Canadians afford homes by reducing, their cost. But in reality, the average home in our region today is close to $1 million.
Right.
And this is not a tax that's payable upon the sale or disposition of your home. This is a tax that they want to put if you live in a home currently that's worth $1 million. So potentially, what they want to do is add a $10,000 premium to your annual tax payable. So forget the fact that you're paying property tax, HST, GST, carbon tax, all the great taxes that our government's charging. On top of that, let's add another surtax if you fall into that category. I don't really see this as any benefit and in any way helping affordable housing. This is just another attempt at creating some sort of tax to generate some sort of revenue for the government. And I really just don't know how this, every other approach has failed and it continues to fail. This will actually target Canadians who are elderly, who have owned their homes for many years, who have capital appreciation in their principal residence, and now they're going to be forced to pay a surtax. So I hope that the voters push back on this, that there is some legislation that prevents this from actually happening. But it's very sad the lengths that this government is going to to create these taxes in a time where people are just barely hanging on to their properties.
Right. Right. And it sounds a little bit like, grasping at straws. And the other thing is, maybe someone sits there and says, you know what, if you're gonna value my home, value it at $999,000 and don't go any higher than that. Uh, there's so many different loopholes that are possible out there. And also just it still isn't going to solve the problem at hand.
Yeah, like we need a holistic approach to policy
Hmm.
rather than piecemeal tax solutions. Well, let's try this, let's try that. They had the UHT, and I mean, they just come up with all these acronyms for different taxes that they try it, doesn't work, and like, oh yeah, we're not going to do that anymore. But it puts people in such a tailspin when we have to start scrambling to gather the information, provide the documentation, be forced with fines and charges if you don't provide the information, only for them to undo it. Like last year with this whole UHT requirement, it cost us thousands and thousands of dollars to file if you own any properties, the unused housing tax credit information. So it was just such a pain to do, and then they just did away with it. And again, this is what my concern is, that they want to implement these taxes. Are they enforceable? Will they be circumvented? Like you said, do you just
Hmm.
state my house is worth nine? And then when you do sell your home, are they going to come back and say, oh, well, you said it was worth 999, but you got 1.2 million. So now we're going to back charge you the taxes that you should have been paying. Like, where does this end?
And these are those hot button topics. We get Faisal on here, and he gets hot under the collar about them. And but they're important to him, which means that they're going to be important to us as well too. If we look at, uh, maybe something a little nicer. The 24th of July is fast approaching, Faisal, and we know what the Bank of Canada did back in June. What are you expecting to see happening this time around?
Okay, so June 5th was an important date for us this year because that started the downward trajectory of reducing interest rates. And we saw that that 0.25% drop in rate got those buyers who were on the sidelines, the pent-up demand that was sort of there, immediately translated into market activity, but it was very short lived. We had about 8 to 10 days where I personally saw my listings leading up to that date that were sitting possibly 2 to 3 weeks, which is not typical. We usually are able to sell the homes a lot sooner than that, but they were sort of sitting there for 2 to 3 weeks because people were waiting to see, what is this rate going to be? Is there going to be a downward trend? And as soon as it happened, they jumped in, gobbled up the inventory that was there, but then it stopped again. And right
Okay.
now, we're in that time zone where we're not seeing a lot of inventory moving. We're seeing great value for those buyers who are sitting there. There is extremely good value out in the market right now. Now, July 24th, with the rate reduction expected, and there's probably a 95% chance that this will happen, that will create another uptick in the market. That will create another surge in buyer population entering the market. That
Okay.
may increase a little bit of inventory because sellers who are waiting to put their home on the market might say, okay, rate went down, I better get on the market because now the buyers will be out. It may not last again for more than 30 days. So there's going to be a short window of opportunity for those who are selling to take advantage of this. And the buyers that are there, they're not plentiful, but they are out there and they will come to market, I believe, in the next week to week and a half. We will see more buyers there. It will probably soften up though after the August, September timeline with
Okay.
mortgages coming up for renewal and whatnot. And people are still facing those challenges. Mind you, that 0.25%, 0.5% drop will help.
And some other good news that came our way. Former Bank of Canada governor, he recently said that he could see 3% interest rates maybe 2 years down the road. Do you share his optimism, Faisal?
Yeah, absolutely. In fact, I've been saying this for the last few months that
Mhm.
uh, I expect that there will be three rate cuts leading into spring of next year. So that will get us close to 4%. And then if what the former governor is saying holds true, in another 12 months, we'll see another 1%. Now, if we go back in time and look at what happened previously when the rates were continuing to go down, the market was going up as much as 5% per rate drop.
Right.
So, per 0.25% rate drop, I should say. So, by that standard, we could see up to 20% increase in property values. So again, like I've said this on your show before, that yes, you're going to pay a little bit more in a monthly payment for the next 2 years, provided you only sign up for a 2-year mortgage, maximum 3-year mortgage. But the cost savings on the purchase price far outweighs what your interest payment was for that 2 or 3 years. You may pay an extra $15,000 to $20,000 in interest that you would not have to pay if you have a lower interest rate. But that far outweighs a $150,000 or $100,000 evaluation that you would be paying, a higher evaluation that you would be paying on that property if you wait till everybody's jumping in, the bidding wars are back. And it was only 2 years ago that we saw that.
If we see this rate cut come next week on the 24th, in your mind, who are the people that are most likely to benefit from that cut? Are the people that are getting like new to the game, or who is really going to be benefiting?
Well, yeah, for sure. The first time home buyers that have been sort of waiting on the sidelines, waiting to get into the market, well, here's your opportunity. Not only to get in at a little bit of a lower rate than we've been accustomed to in the last little while, but also to save a lot of money while the prices are still down due to the impacts of these rate hikes that we've experienced. Number two, that first time home buyer that bought their home, say 2 or 3 years ago, has now has an opportunity now to upgrade, into maybe they're in a townhome or a semi and they want to get into a single detached. Well, the gap is pretty narrow when you're moving up. You're able to maybe spend $100,000 or $150,000, increase your mortgage by that amount to get to the next level of home. Whereas in the peak of the market, when it was going wild, to jump to the next category from a townhome to a semi or from a semi to a detached home, it was $300,000 to $400,000 jump. So that gap is fairly minor compared to what it was. So there's an opportunity there for that upgrade. And then lastly, for those sellers who have been waiting for the market to just get a little bit better so that they can recover some of their losses if they had bought at a high time, they will now have an opportunity to jump in and put their home on the market. But it's going to be very short-lived. I've been repeating that many times, and I've had so many listing appointments in the last little while where I'm saying, if you're thinking about selling this year, the next 30 to 45 days is your opportunity.
Right.
Otherwise, I'm strongly recommending, and it doesn't come out of realtors' mouths that often, but I'm strongly recommending not to sell your home
Right.
until April or May of next year when the market recovers, because you don't want to watch your neighbors get $100,000 more for their home when you took a pretty big hit because you were anxious to sell in an off market.
Good, always good advice, and it comes with a lot of years of experience. At least we're going back a quarter century, and I don't like to say that because Faisal and I are around the same age. So you know what? We're coming up on a break though here and Ask the Experts. When we come back, affordable housing, is that dream of home ownership really just the dream? Stay with us here on City News 570. Welcome back to the show. My guest today is Faisal Susiwala, recently named as the number one REMAX agent worldwide in terms of sales volume and number of homes sold. He's also the author of the book, The Real Deal, Billion-Dollar Real Estate Broker. Faisal Susiwala, listeners, if you'd like a chance to chat with Faisal yourself, you can start by going to homeshack.com. You can also call Faisal directly, 519-624-5555, or email works as well, Faisal@homeshack.com. So, Faisal, we keep hearing about the need for more affordable housing. We've got a large influx of new Canadians who all need a place to call their own. What are you seeing on your end when it comes to what people are having to deal with, or heartbreaking stories, or the positive side of things? What are you seeing when it comes to this?
There's still a challenge with affordable housing, but that's tied into interest rates, that's tied into supply and demand. But be careful what we wish for.
Right.
We're preaching in one hand that we need more affordable housing, we need more affordable housing. The fact is, in order for there to be affordable housing, the value of your home needs to go down.
Mhm.
So it's like former Prime Minister Jean Chrétien used to say, everybody wants to go to heaven, but nobody wants to die. And that stands correct. And everybody wants affordable housing, but nobody wants to see the value of their home go down. Prime Minister Justin Trudeau was asked this question: does the values of homes need to go down in order for affordable housing to occur? And his safe answer was no. Well, then what's the solution here?
Yeah.
There just isn't a simple solution other than maybe giving more municipal owned land to builders. But at the same time, we have to look at, we have been spoiled. Builders have been spoiled. Developers have been spoiled. Realtors have been spoiled. Everybody has been really living in really good times over the last 10 years, I would say. Builders got accustomed to generating high profits on high profit margins. I was speaking to a senior builder not that long ago, And he said to me that, there was a time where the builder was happy to make 10 or 12 points on construction, and that profit margin was good, and it was acceptable to them. Then there came a time where 30% was expected. A
Hmm.
30% profit margin was expected on every home they were selling. Well, that's really not sustainable in today's time. So, yes, you can say, well, we're not making enough money, but maybe the margins are just too high, the profits that they're expecting. And we talked about this in relation to inflation, that you can't just use interest rates to control inflation. Maybe we have to look at the supply chain. We have to look at corporate profits. We have to look at developer profits, builder profits. And if everybody said, okay, I don't need to make it all on this one shot and let's spread it out so everybody can eat a little bit, I think that's probably a better approach than expecting affordable housing just to magically happen when no one is willing to take a little bit less. And I think that's going to be our challenge coming into next year.
And we said this before. Faisal has these ideas. I put it to him that maybe he wants to run for, city council, provincial, and he's no, he doesn't want to do any of that stuff. But the people who are in those positions need to listen to the things that Faisal comes up with. I love that line you said. Spread it out so that everyone can eat. What a great idea. Um, the province Faisal has recently released their new affordable housing price definitions for those developers that are wanting to qualify for rebates. What do those numbers actually look like?
I was reading I believe it was the Financial Post, and my eyes almost popped out of my head when I saw the numbers that Ontario has released for their affordable housing targets and what the price needs to be to create affordable housing. So just get your head around these numbers. You'll be shocked. The government set specific affordable sale prices for various municipalities. So that is 366,500 for a detached home in Toronto. Like, did you hear that number? 366. 438,000 in Ottawa, 434,000 in Mississauga. Those numbers we haven't seen in probably 15 years.
Right,
So I
right.
don't know how they expect that developers would ever be able to create detached housing anywhere near that. And developers are saying, well, that's great that you're coming up with these numbers for us. There was a case study done in Vaughan,
Mm,
Ontario, that indicated that the cost of a single family home in Vaughan to construct is 1.3 million.
wow,
Now, if the
wow.
target is, and the target for Vaughan is 531, that's 2.5 times what the target is.
Yeah.
It's virtually impossible for that. So are they just throwing out numbers to make people happy or give them that false hope that at one point or another you're going to be able to buy a single family home in GTA for $500,000? That's not happening. That is
No.
absolutely not happening. The Ford government plans to offer surplus public lands to affordable housing projects. That's pretty scarce. Like, is there enough land for that to actually even happen? And then again, we come back to profitability. Is the builder willing to take 10% or 12% profit as opposed to the 25 or 30% that they've become accustomed to?
Yeah, you sit there and like you were saying, you look at those numbers and it's as though they've just pulled them out of a hat somewhere. And I don't understand the whole process because as you said before, if you want houses to be 300, 350,000, $400,000, um, your home's going to be going down in value. And that's not, people would stop right away and say, "Oh, wait a second. Yeah, we haven't really thought that one through." Um, the other thing, and it kind of ties in as well too. It's been a month since we saw the changes come to the capital gains tax. What have you been seeing happening? And I've got a few examples around the region I want to talk to you about as well too.
Sure. Well, yeah. So just a refresher, the capital gains tax came into effect June 25th. It took the inclusion rate from capital gains from 50% to 67% for Canadians earning over $250,000 through stocks or secondary properties. Now, Trudeau claims the tax change will generate 20 billion in new revenue over 5 years. The revenue is intended for investments in affordable housing. Again, same old song we've been hearing, but I doubt that this will generate that projected revenue because the ultra rich have already figured it out. The wealthy have already figured it out. They have offshore accounts. They have ways of sheltering their money, avoiding tax. They have, high paid accountants that have avoidance strategies. Now, who is this really impacting? It's impacting seniors who have worked their entire lives to own that cottage, or they've had that cottage for many years and now they need to sell it so that they can go live in a nursing home and pay for the rest of their accommodations. And those are the people. So, business groups such as tech industry leaders argue that changes will hinder innovation and economic competitiveness. All of that remains true, but the CRA should be targeting and working on enforcement of tax evasion and tax avoidance, as opposed to going after the regular mom, pa, or grandma who owns the cottage and trying to get, an extra 15 or 17% out of her pockets.
It was strange timing, and I think one thing was leading to the other. I was driving past brand new row of townhomes that have been built in the region, and a month and a half ago, almost to a unit, every one of them had either a lease sign in front of it or a for sale sign in front of it. So is that are that have we got a bunch of investors there that are trying to dump their product because they're not interested in dealing it with these higher taxes?
It's an interesting strategy. They brought this out in a very short order and said June 25th, we're going to have this tax implemented. So, in my sort of conspiracy head here, it's they wanted to fearmonger the
Right.
average homeowner, investor, person who didn't have proper tax advice, didn't have proper consulting or financial planners sort of calm their nerves a little bit. And these folks instantly had a knee-jerk reaction to say, I better sell my property.
Right. Right. Okay, and that's fair. I think it's important for people to have an understanding of what's going on and why all of a sudden, the units they've only been there. I'm going to say 6 months or so, but the for sale signs were just like you could almost just like a row of them as you went down the street, and it's a little disheartening. And the first thing you do is you start going on and looking at, well, what's actually for sale and why are people trying to get out of there? And it's important for us to be able to ask those questions. We do need to take a quick break. We'll get an update from the City News 570, City News 570 News Center. When we come back, we're coming up on the dog days of summer. How can you boost your home's curb appeal? Stay with us here on City News 570. Welcome back to the show. My guest today, Faisal Susiwala, recently named as the #1 REMAX agent worldwide in terms of sales volume and number of homes sold. If you'd like a chance to chat with Faisal yourself, you can start by going to homeshack.com. You can call Faisal directly, 519-624-5555, or through email, Faisal@homeshack.com. So, Faisal, the heat of the summer is in full swing. Folks with backyard pools are becoming quite popular with their friends, maybe right now. Does it make sense for a homeowner to take the plunge, as it were, and install a pool in their yard?
To put a brand new pool in today, the cost has come down from the highs of COVID. You could have been spending $200,000 to have a pool in your backyard at that time. I think the pool contractors are prepared to take a little bit less profit and understand that the demand isn't as high as it was. So now we're seeing the price of installing a new pool has come down, but not to the level that purchasing a home with an existing pool would save you. So there was a time where it was, you were paying a $300,000 premium for a home with a swimming pool in it, especially during COVID when nobody could go anywhere. Today, there isn't as much of a premium, maybe $50,000 premium, if that. So I would say that if you're really thinking about a pool, instead of investing the money and putting it in your backyard, possibly this is the time to step up into a home that already has an existing pool, and you will save a ton of money, and you'll get to use it immediately. You don't have to wait till next year to use it. And there's plenty of homes on the market right now that have a pool. And actually, one interesting thing while we're talking about swimming pools, I was recently at a listing appointment, and I entered the home and I saw about 12 to 15 people in the backyard. And they didn't look related. They looked like this was a different group. And so I asked the homeowners, I said, what's going on? Are you having a little party back there? And said, no, we rent out our backyard.
Oh
So
yeah.
companies that are out there that so if you need to supplement some of your costs of ownership of a pool or just upgrading, there are opportunities there which I was quite surprised by, and I thought, well, what a great, it's like Airbnb your backyard for and it's pretty reasonable, and it's a good little bit of side income there.
I have to laugh when it comes to backyard pools because I think back when we were teenagers, nobody really had motion sensor lights on. So if you needed to get into someone's backyard just to cool down and hop in the pool one night, you could do that. It's a little bit more difficult, I think, and I wouldn't want to try the fence these days either, Faisal. So,
No.
uh, at the same time, some people might be taking a staycation this summer as well, and maybe they're spending some time doing some home improvement projects. For any of the folks that are taking on sort of those DIY projects, what are your top five when it comes to what can you be doing to increase that sort of curb appeal and the best bang for your buck, I would think as well.
Kitchens is always the number one. And now, if you're renovating your kitchen, you may want to look at redesigning your kitchen as well. Perhaps adding an island and removing the peninsula. Perhaps taking out a wall to the formal dining room that you use maybe once a year and just expanding your kitchen into that. Or if there's a wall that separates your kitchen from your family room, to create more of an open concept interactive living space, removing that wall, having an island overlook your family room. So these are some tweaks that you can do. Of course, you want to get engineers and proper permits and all of that, but that can definitely increase the value of your home and certainly give you a return on that investment, at least what you got into it, and possibly even a profit. Bathrooms are another section that's very important. Just something simple is just updating the hardware, lighting, vanity. You don't have to rip out the tub if it's in good shape, just doing a different surround. So a lot of these little tweaks will help. If you only have one bathroom in a home, adding a second bathroom, especially if you already have an existing rough-in in the basement,
Yep.
that goes a long way in creating more value. But again, fixtures, tiles, vanities, we've talked about. Thirdly, curb appeal. That
Right.
first
Right.
impression really matters. If you've got an overgrown gardens with weeds and you haven't been staying on top of your grass, just edging, trimming down some of those trees that are really close to the house, just bringing more light to the home, landscaping, new front door, new garage doors, outdoor lighting, that's huge. Just adding, don't go overboard with the pot lights, but just adding a couple of pot lights just to add some ambiance there. Attics and basement conversions. That's very
Mhm.
important, especially right now where there is a need for additional bedrooms, additional living spaces, multi-generational living. If you're able to create that extra bedroom, the home office, the entertainment area, that may, take care of the need to upgrade into the next home, but also makes your home extremely appealing to the next buyer. And lastly, just creating more of an efficient, energy efficient home. Buyers today are far more conscious of home energy, just environmental consciousness is very, very high on the list. So, windows insulation, HVAC systems, anything you can do to create a little bit more of an efficient home is going to definitely help you get that buyer to appreciate the improvements that you're doing.
If we go back to that idea of the kitchen, right? The kitchen tends to be it's the central hub, right? And if you're whether you're having a party or just a dinner or getting together with your family, that and it does seem to play a much bigger role in people's lives when it comes to just spending time with each other.
Absolutely. You want that one central sort of the heart of the house to be a place to gather. And if you're compartmentalized, like a lot of the homes that were built in the 80s were just sectioned off, lots of little rooms. You don't have to get rid of all of the rooms, but you may want to eliminate either the dining room or the formal living room, or just take out a simple wall that connects the family room to the kitchen. Again, I can't stress enough, make sure you have an engineer involved and a building permit so that the house does not fall on you.
Good idea. Uh, and main floor laundry, is that something that comes with age? Because I know that that's one of the things that I keep looking at, going, man, that really appeals to me.
The main floor laundry it is very appealing, especially if you have a one-story or a bungalow. Now, if you
Right.
have a two-story home, again, it's very convenient. But often these main floor laundries are in a very cramped space coming out of your garage, straight into the mudroom. You've got your winter boots there. Doesn't really make for a very appealing space to do your laundry, do your ironing. So I often recommend, like, don't cap off the main floor laundry if you already have it, but
Mhm.
create a mudroom in that space and create a very nice large laundry room in your basement, with flooring, with nice lighting, with all of the amenities that you need for ironing and steaming and hangers, and create that space in your basement, because that then gives you a space where you can work, and also gives the next buyer the vision that, okay, I can have my main floor if I want, but I have this really nice space to do my laundry. And more people are sort of opting for that option.
Fine. So I can hear these honey-do lists getting, longer and longer as we continue to talk, as people are, on their holidays and are like, wait a second, what are they talking about? But hey, with this is the time that you have, and if you want to start to make those changes, no better time than the present, as they say.
Yes.
You mentioned earlier in the show, we've got this huge influx of new Canadians, and they've got, there's certain their own issues that they're dealing with, adjusting to a new country, a new language in some cases. What happens when it comes to housing with a lot of the new people that are arriving on our shores?
Well, many of the new immigrants, up to, I read somewhere, up to 40% of the recent immigrants to Canada are considering relocating due to
Wow.
housing affordability issues. So it's just coming down to affordability. Now, when they're relocating, they may be in Ontario today, but they're saying, okay, well, look, we got to go to New Brunswick, or we have to go to Halifax, or Newfoundland, because there's a little bit more. And many of the new immigrants may be in transportation, maybe in IT. So they don't necessarily need to be situated in a highly dense area, or an expensive area, because they can do the work that they need to do from pretty much anywhere across the country. Many are moving back to
Okay.
the countries that they came from, because the Canadian dream isn't what they expected.
Right.
They didn't expect to be living in a home sharing bedrooms with 12 people. And we're seeing a lot more of that. And that's again because of the affordability. They had high hopes, but unfortunately it's just not working out. And again, not to get too political, but maybe they weren't screened properly by our government to say, okay, do these people have an opportunity of success when they come into this country? Or
Right.
are they going to suffer? Are they going to be a burden to the taxpayers? Oh, look, I'm an immigrant myself. I'm all for immigration, but at the same time, responsible immigration is very important as well.
Okay. Important information for us to be talking about. Let's take a final break here on Ask the Experts. When we come back, what it means to be a millennial. You're listening to Ask the Experts here on City News 570. Welcome back to the show. My guest today has been Faisal Susiwala, also known as the top real estate broker in the world for REMAX. Listeners, if you'd like a chance to chat with Faisal yourself, you can start by going to homeshack.com. You can also call Faisal directly, 519-624-5555, or through email, faisal@homeshack.com. Faisal, in your mind, what does it mean to be a millennial these days? What sort of challenges do you face if you're in your 20s and 30s? I mean, it wasn't that long ago that we were there, and I know things weren't always rosy for us, but what's going to be different for this next generation?
Well, a lot of millennials may not realize this yet, but they're going to become the wealthiest generation due to the estimated $90 trillion in wealth transfer from the silent generation and the baby boomers over the next 20 years. So
Well,
that's a
you're
lot of
welcome. They're welcome, aren't they?
yeah, exactly. So they're going to be very, very wealthy people. Now that's not a reason to sort of say, well, let's just get by for the next 20 years and we're going to inherit all this money. But older generations often view the millennials as financially irresponsible. So it's interesting what's going to happen over the next 20 years. What is this generation of baby boomers and the silent generation going to do with their money? And are they going to put it in trust? Are they going to give it all away? Are they going to set their kids up with restrictions on what they have to do with their money? So these are important conversations for that age group and including our age group to start thinking about, what's going to happen to our assets once we are gone, because the cost of living will continue to increase. Now, today, many millennials live paycheck to paycheck
Right.
and support aging parents. So that, it goes the other way as well. They're supporting their aging parents and they're also supporting their children. So it's a double-edged sword for them. So maybe they deserve that big wealth transfer in 20 years because they're putting in their time, like we all have in different ways over the years. But the big question is, and I worry about this, is they are not prepared and they have not developed the skills. And I'll get a lot of pushback for this, but I really feel they haven't developed the skills to handle the inheritance. In fact, not just millennials, most people
Mm.
that I've come into exchange with have no idea how to invest their money, what to do with their inheritance. It's like sometimes, and we've watched these shows on television where somebody won $50 million and in 7 years they have nothing to show for it.
So yeah, it's
So
all good.
exactly. So this is very similar to that scenario. But millennials will most likely use their inheritance to pay off student loans, credit card debt, providing financial freedom, just getting that opportunity to start enabling savings, maybe get into their home ownership, because a lot of millennials don't look at home ownership as even an option right now. It'll be interesting. We don't know if they're programmed to do that because millennials also show a greater interest in technology and innovation and stock market and tech as opposed to real estate.
All right, and it's interesting to, and we have had this discussion as well too, where the younger generation tends to have more of an interest in experiences more so than things, if you wanted to put it that way, right? So when that inheritance lands on their feet or at their feet in 20 years, and it's a home, do they turn around and sell it? Do they move into it? But it'll be interesting to see, and it's a great point to make, to say, hey, you are going to be inheriting this huge amount of cash and wealth, and you got to be ready for it as well too. Great point. Modular homes, Faisal, we've talked about these in the past. They were kind of set to be the next big thing, but we know even locally that they've taken a bit of a hit. What's happened in that sector of the market?
Well, modular homes, and just to recap, they start at about $100,000 for a studio apartment, up to $200,000 for a two-bedroom, and you basically park this in your backyard, and you create additional living accommodations or rental income or just somewhere for an in-law or son or daughter to live. The problem has been the red tape. The municipalities have not been able to streamline the building permits. Just things are not moving as they were supposed to. So Bill 185 aimed to accelerate housing development and reduce red tape. Well, it's not working. It hasn't been working. I don't think that the mandate is aligned with municipal mandates, and no one's actually doing what they're supposed to be doing. And sadly, we saw this with the closure of Zed Modular's
Mhm.
kitchen operations. It just shows that there isn't enough going through for something to be sustainable. There's not enough rollout of this product because the permits are not being done. People are saying, well, this just doesn't make sense for me to wait 6 months when I need it now, or wait 9 months for a permit when I need it now. So I think it's going to continue having a problem. We see other companies throughout the region and in Ontario that are complaining, that saying, look, we're ready to go. We're ready to put these homes out. We're ready to install these homes in people's backyards, but they're not seeing the cooperation from municipalities.
And we've talked about that in the past as well too, right? That you've got three, and in this case, in our case, four levels of government that all have to find a way to get along and make things happen. And each one of them has their own hurdles that you have to jump through. And it's unfortunate when companies do have to shut down operations because they are running up against so many challenges. As we've said, those modular homes, they would serve a purpose. They would, as we were talking about earlier in the show, affordable housing. If you've got the space and you've got the land to do it, why wouldn't you? And it would make sense. But hopefully things will clear up in the next little while. The rental market, Faisal, we really haven't talked much about that lately. What trends are you seeing right now?
Well, we're seeing a lot of rental units hitting the market. And essentially the reason for that is people who purchase properties, especially in the GTA, with the intent to assign it, resell it, flip it. Well, they're caught with these properties. They're unable to get out of these properties. Their equity has gone down. They risk losing their down payment if they don't close these properties. So what are they doing? They're just flooding the real estate market with rentals. And we're seeing that in our region as well. So the market is trending down now. So we've seen, up to 3% drops in the GTA, 8% in Vancouver. Our region is pretty stable, but I would say less than 1% drop. But we're starting to see the inventory creep up. And when the inventory of rentals starts creeping up, you're going to see better deals. When you see homeowners who are unable to meet their mortgage requirements that own second and third properties, they're saying, well, instead of holding out for that $2,800 for my townhouse, maybe I take the 2,500 and get somebody in August and not lose another month's worth of rent. So we're seeing a lot of that happening, and I think that's going to continue right until next year when we see a lot of this inventory being purchased as opposed to being rented.
Good information, and we, as you were saying, in our region, it comes with its pluses and minuses. A lot of our rental properties are they're driven by the universities and the colleges, and it's mostly students that are there. They are transient. So if you're a student, things are looking a little bit better for you, but just be paying attention. Faisal, I want to thank you so much for coming on the show again today. Always a pleasure to chat with you, and we always learn something new. It's always a great chance to reconnect with you every month as well too.
Thanks for having me on, Brock. Always like
Happy to
talking to you.
have you.
Thank
Thanks so
you.
much. That was Faisal Susiwala, top real estate broker and recently published author of The Real Deal, Billion-Dollar Real Estate Broker, and someone who knows what he's talking about when it comes to the real estate market, and he's willing to share his time with us. Thanks to you listeners for joining us. You've been listening to Ask the Experts here on City News 570.